like to ask you the question about the important event that happened in the very start of the year, that is the Russia and Ukraine war. So we've seen the Russian invasion in the Ukraine unfolded in the Europe, and it is a very big war after the World War II. So what do you think the impact of this war on the global order?
It's a great question, Priya. We've had several conflicts, some skirmishes at the border, some civil wars in Africa and elsewhere in the past 75 years after the Second World War, 77 years or so. But never before was the global order rudely disrupted. Because there was this accepted consensus in the post-Second World War world that a nation's boundaries will never be forcibly altered. That a nation will never conquer another nation. America did invade Iraq, but with the UN resolution, and because of the, obviously in retrospect it was proved to be false, because of the fear that there were weapons of mass destruction, but not to invade or to colonize. America did invade Afghanistan, not to invade, because Afghan government at the time, Taliban government, refused to surrender the Al-Qaeda leadership, which was clearly responsible for the 9/11 massacre, the terrible, ghastly terrorist incident. India did enter Bangladesh, then East Pakistan, but with the clear intention to liberate in the context of tremendous human rights abuse, mass migration, and tremendous amount of persecution of the Bengalis. And once we liberated, Indian army came back. So it's not that there were no skirmishes. It's not that even territory was not occupied, but it was a temporary thing. Whereas this is with an avowed intention of extinguishing a nation, recognized internationally as an independent sovereign country, including by the erstwhile Soviet Union or Russia, the post-Soviet countries. In that sense, it's a rude awakening for the world. That it happened in Europe, which has seen so many wars, and which has been the primary cause of either the League of Nations after the First World War or the United Nations after the Second World War. The primary objective is there shall be no war in future. That it happened in Europe, which is allegedly the more civilized part of the world with enormous experience in running institutions and global order, it is actually shocking. Therefore, it has profound impact on all of us. If today might becomes right, if anybody can invade any other country, there are no basic rules of the game, then we are inviting disaster. Global chaos, global violence, global anarchy, and a complete breakdown of global order will happen. Because you like it or not, nation-state system is still the fulcrum around which the global order is built. Maybe in a century's time, we don't require nation-states, I do not know. But at this point of time, you cannot envisage global order without acceptance of nation-state system. Therefore, sovereignty of the nations, therefore the integrity of the nations, and therefore protection of the boundaries of the nation and inviolability of a nation's territorial integrity. And I think all that is rudely shaken by Russia, which is seen as a responsible power, because whatever were the problems during the Cold War, the United States and NATO powers and the then Soviet Union acted with a great deal of responsibility and restraint. That restraint is completely broken. Therefore, it is a frightening issue, and if goes unchecked, there could be extremely grievous consequences to the world.
So you've talked about the global order, so and also the sovereignty. So this war is also a threat to the peace and the international cooperation in general. So I think Russia has underestimated the democratic power of the Ukraine. So what do you think? Like, the Ukraine is putting up a great resistance to its surprise, to Russia's surprise. So is this because of the democratic spirit that Ukraine has, that it is resisting the Russian onslaught and the power it is getting from the major democracies across the globe, like the support it is getting? Do you think it is able to resist this war because of the democratic spirit it holds?
I think it's not merely democratic spirit, certainly that is there, but I think a combination of things. Ukraine, as we witness every day on television, perhaps represents the best of nationalism. What is nationalism? A shared sense of history, typically but not necessarily a language, which is an umbilical cord and a bond for all of them, but there are multilingual countries like India. Then a shared culture and religion, often they go together. All these apply to Ukraine. And obviously, as you said, a fierce sense of independence and freedom. And that's why when you watch Ukrainian leadership or Ukrainian citizens or journalists or scholars or their elected representatives or local governments speak on television, you see a remarkable commonality of spirit. The words they use, the language they use, the dreams they express or they cherish, and the determination they exhibit, they are remarkably common. That means there is a tremendous national consensus. That is true nationalism. It's not merely jingoism. Because in the face of tremendous adversity, here is a nation of 40, 50 million people which is showing remarkable common purpose. Because there is a sense of common fate. And Ukraine is not a particularly well-governed country. In the past 25, 30 years, there were so many complaints of corruption, monumental corruption, oligarchies, and political upheavals, etc., etc. Despite that, I think the nation found tremendous sense of unity and purpose, and probably the nation also found a tremendous leader, a totally unexpected, outstanding leader who never had any political experience. But I think in many ways, it's an instruction manual for all of us, how a nation is built, and how there is a sense of common fate binding people, and how the people as one respond when their collective survival is under threat. I think it's a marvel. It's a source of inspiration for all of us. And most of us, particularly from democratic societies, we feel strongly. That perhaps comes also from a sense of collective danger. The common purpose is not merely about the past or the present. It's also the fear that if the might of Russia goes unchallenged, then Ukraine as a country, as a society, as a culture, as a civilization, they will cease to exist. So in that sense, the bridges are burnt. Life or death.